Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Just a few days ago we had the earnings report of the company called Cadeler, and I personally think that the company is a potentially huge beneficiary of the energy transition, which is definitely coming. I can see it from the news that I follow, and I suggest to go through the earnings report. We'll see some highlights. Also, we'll see what the CEO and the CFO of the company comment. And before we proceed, if you could hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, it definitely supports me to make other videos. So here they've got a slide where you can see the whole 10 running vessels, at which stage they are, where they are located, in which project they take part. I'm not gonna read all of them, so if you want to have a look closer, make a pause and please familiarize yourself with what each vessel is doing. It's worth reminding that the company at this stage has 10 running vessels, and they expect two more. One is coming in April, already in few weeks basically, and one more vessel will come next year. So what was important from this earnings report? That they are actually, the company is in a transition period in terms of the business model. And the main thing that I caught was that they are switching from the day rate model to the execution model. So they are going to earn money not from based on how much time they spend with the project, but on their cost of the project will be based on their performance. And for me personally, I like this idea. Besides, the CEO of the company mentioned that they are going to benefit from that. Here we can see how the backlog is divided geographically, and the majority of the projects are going to be in Europe. As you can see, it's 87% of all the backlog is going to be within Europe, and 8% in Asia, and only 5% in North America. The company also says that the contract backlog remains strong at 2.8 billion of euros. And if we compare with the previous year, it was 2.3 billion euros. So the contracts are definitely coming. But what's important here that 80% of the whole backlog has reached the final investment decision. So the company can rely on these contracts. Here we can see the new contracts that the company won just recently. And what's interesting here that the company also has the preferred supplier agreement, which is not yet included in the backlog. So in January, Cadeler announced that it had signed a preferred supplier agreement with an undisclosed client for the transportation and installation of monopiles and transition pieces at a large offshore wind farm in Europe. So we definitely can see how the backlog has been growing over the past few years. This is what the company CEO mentions about the backlog. Have a look.
27, 28 that we discussed at length in the Q3 presentation. I'm happy to say that in 27 we consider ourselves fully booked now. We are currently working with the yard to potentially deliver the Wind Apex slightly earlier, because we have a client that is ready to take the vessel straight from the yard and into a project. Meaning that we are, with the few white spaces we have left in 27, we do consider that time that we want to keep available for clients should they run into some sort of supply chain issue, and really have built a solid 27 for ourselves. In 28, we are also much more positive now than we were in Q3, due to the fact that we have secured the preferred supplier agreement on this large-scale foundation project, and overall are seeing positive momentum for the 28 campaign overall.
Okay, so that's the CEO of the company was speaking, and the key takeaways from this speech were that the 2027 is fully booked for the company, and they expect also the 2028 even better than they expected in the Q3, in the previous quarter. Also here we have some more updates on the progress on the new build vessels which are coming. The first one will come Wind Ace, which is expected in the Q3. Actually, let's see what the CEO says.
On the new builds, Wind Ace, we are at 94% completion. The naming ceremony for the Wind Ace, the official naming ceremony, will be on the 15th of April.
Okay, so Wind Ace is almost completed. On the 15th of April, the company fleet will consist of 11 vessels already.
We are looking to deliver the vessel on time. On the Wind Apex, as I said, we are 34% completion, and we are currently discussing with the yard to do up to 1 month early delivery due to the fact that we have a client who would like to take that vessel straight from the yard and into a project for a sizable project on turbine installation.
Okay, once again, so the Wind Apex is expected to be delivered earlier, and she'll go straight to the project. I see the positive news coming to the next positive news, and this is how the company executes so far. And if you remember, the previous ships were also delivered a bit earlier, and some of them went straight to the project as well. And this is the picture how the Cadeler's fleet look like. And have a look that the average fleet age is 5 years. So out of, I think it's already included all 12 vessels in the list. So this one will be delivered 2027. This one will be delivered just in a few weeks from now. Half of the fleet are the new builds, and some of them are also quite new, like Wind Peak, for instance, built 2024. And this is very important point, and I will show you in one of the next slides. Also here you can see what are the main functions of the vessels. So the key financial highlights of the previous year are the revenue that they delivered was 620 million of euros. So you can here compare with 2024, and you can see a substantial move. The equity ratio went down to 44%, and there is reason for that, and the CFO of the company will mention it later on. The utilization of the fleet was really high, almost 89%, and net profit jumped almost 4 times since full year 2024. The backlog, you can see, moved from 2.3 to 2.8 billion of euros. So the full year outlook for 2026 is also quite promising. You can see that the revenue is still growing quite substantially. However, the EBITDA is potentially can stay flat during the next year, and there is also a reason for that. Let's have a look on the CFO comments about the full year outlook.
What is important to understand about the outlook in 26 is exactly what Mikkel has talked about earlier in the presentation. First of all, it's a transition year for Wind, and so isolated in 26, you could argue it is financially transition year, but it will improve the returns in 27 and onwards. So it's actually a good year for Wind as it is an investment year.
2026, they expect to be a transitional year. So one more interesting point to see what the CEO mentions about the commercial outlook delivered here.
In terms of commercial outlook, which of course is important because I think in all honesty, we are coming from a 2025 where we were facing a very negative narrative in general in the industry due to a lot of factors. We are seeing milder winds blowing over the offshore wind space and also continued growth of the industry and the deployment of offshore wind globally. And as we say here, after 28, 29, we expect a very strong growth towards the end of the decade. Europe has been raising the bar and as declared by the North Sea Summit, the 9 member states of the North Sea Summit have declared a target of 15 gigawatts per year outbuilt between 2030 and 2040. And we are very, very pleased with a target like that because that is, in our opinion, how you build a supply chain, that you actually set a target, what should the supply chain be able to push out per year in this region. And this is not the entire European target. This is for the member states of the Green Seas, the North Sea Summit, sorry. So in all Europe will be a higher number than this. Outside the fact that there's an annual outbuild target, there's also a financial plan to how to achieve this. And that is also what has been lacking in the more arbitrary targets that were more setting a target for 2040, 2050 in the past. So all in all, we really are pleased with seeing these targets and we believe that that's a very strong data point for the future and also for the demand situation for the future. Another very real data point is the UK Auction Round 7, where the UK government awarded record volumes. Really, it was 70% above what was expected, and the budget went up to 200% of what was the original budget. So also a very strong data point. But another strong data point is that the UK Auction Round 8 has already been shifted forward, so we can expect that already to happen in July 2026. And these are projects that are happening towards the end of this decade and the beginning of the next decade. So already today, we are in dialogue with clients for work that is taking place in 29, 2030, 2031, 2032, 2033, and so on. So that is a very, very positive data point for us. And then we also do see a lot of private capital coming back into offshore wind. Apollo committing $6.5 billion to acquire 50% of Hornsea 3, and KKR forming a joint venture with RWE for offshore wind projects. And there are many, many other examples of this. Altogether, strong growth in the space and in the industry. And as we have said, a much better feeling about the 28 situation for Cadeler. Although we still recognize that for the industry, 28 for some can be a difficult year, then we say today that we have a much better feeling about 2028.
Yeah, that's very nice to hear. So we've got quite a few catalysts that the private capital is flowing into the offshore wind, even though the sentiment was so bad just recently. Then, as CEO mentions, the company discusses the potential contracts with their clients. So it sounds really positive for the next years, not just next year or the 2028. So the company is going to be definitely busy in the next 5 to 10 years as I can see it. And this one is especially interesting. Have a look. The company at the moment is the highest, the biggest supplier of the wind turbine installation vessels in the world. And if we have a look at this graph, so but by the 2030, there will start the demand overcome the supply of these kind of vessels. And considering that the Cadeler's fleet is so young, the company will be just in the right time to provide this service for the clients. Let's see what the CEO comments about it.
We still believe that there will be an undersupply of capable vessels in the market, and that will start in 29, 2030. We believe that in particular on the foundation side to begin with, of course, because they go in first, and then secondly on the VTG side. It happens for a multitude of different reasons. It's efficiencies, it's the efficiency on the larger turbines, it's the more complicated projects, it's the raw efficiencies in terms of how many turbines and foundations these vessels can transit with, but it's also the fact that there are a lot of vessels that are reaching the end of the useful life in the beginning of the next decade. So vessels that are counted today because they in theory can install a turbine, they will not be counted after the beginning of the 2030s because simply they are falling out because they are coming to end of useful life.
And I think this is the most powerful point about the Cadeler. It's so-called mode because the demand is already so high and it's planned to be even higher, and it has the largest fleet of the vessels. And we will go to the next slide where we can actually compare the other companies and their fleets across the world. Have a look. So this is the Cadeler, which has or will have 12 vessels by the next year. The follower is the Deme, the Belgium company, which has 8 vessels, and then have a look, less and less. And one more thing I'd like to add to this point, that the Cadeler has definitely advantage over the other companies. So this is so asset heavy business that the companies are not even able to build the vessels in a short term as many would think it would be. Have a look at the comments of the CEO about it.
Inflation. Any thoughts there would be helpful.
I think the reality that we are looking at today is that the shipyards are incredibly busy. So even if you wanted to deliver a vessel in short time, you were not able to. I know that this vessel it looks on paper like a short timeline, but that is mainly because they have been working on it a long time before they actually announced it. It's a vessel targeting the domestic Korean market with.
The main takeaway from here is that even when we see the so high demand from the clients to install the wind turbines, the other companies just simply won't be able to execute these projects just because there is a lack of the ships, and they won't be able to build something really fast because the shipyards are so busy. And also, let's see this comment.
That you maybe can enlighten me on, because I think you now say that 2027 is getting fully booked from your perspective. So what type of utilization level are you kind of targeting, or at least some kind of range when you're talking about kind of fully booked this? Because I think based on announcements, it looks like there's a lot of white space, but obviously you guys have looked into it. So.
Yeah, so I think we have. Yeah, no, that's a totally fair question. I think we have guided from the beginning of the journey of utilization between 75 to 90%. That is also the target in 2027. And that is an adjusted utilization, because obviously to assume that a vessel is busy when it's transiting information back to Europe, for example, that is not possible, even though we would love to install turbines all the way. So that's how we look at it. And then as Peter also said when he went through his numbers, that we exclude the planned write-offs and stuff like that. So the adjusted number we are expecting.
So yeah, once again, this is just a detail to know that when they say that 2027 is fully booked, they mean that it's between 75 and 90% of the vessel's utilization. Yeah, I think it's quite good to know that the company is so busy in the upcoming years, that the fleet is growing, that the vessels are being delivered a bit earlier than expected, that the vessels proceed straight to the project after the shipyard. Also, the company is in the transitional business model period at the moment, and I believe when they transit from the day rate scheme to the more like project execution model, it's something that the company and the investors will benefit from, and that actually was mentioned in the earnings call. Also, we definitely see tailwinds from the governments that the wind energy is actually developing. The countries want to install the wind turbines in the seas, and actually after the earnings report next day, I found quite an interesting news here in the Splash 24/7, where it says Denmark wins European Commission approval for nearly $6 billion wind push. And what is saying that the European Commission has approved about 5 billion euros Danish scheme to support the build out of offshore wind capacity in a push to meet the European Union's 2030 net zero target. And guess what? Who is gonna benefit from these 5 billion euros scheme if Denmark wins that? And they've got a Danish company which is called Cadeler. And today, as I record this video, I also found this news, and I was, to be honest, a bit surprised, just because from my perspective, it's something that has to be mentioned in the earnings report, because there are quite a few, not just details, it's a totally different story now. Have a look. So the news is that the Cadeler contemplated private placement to finance the equity portion of 2 planned T-class new-built vessels and the acquisition and conversion of a heavy lift vessel to the full pipe vessel. So just a tiny detail which was not mentioned in the earnings call is that they're going actually to add 3 more vessels to their fleet. In the opening session, actually the stock was halted, so it was not traded, and I don't know how the reaction is gonna be in the stock market today after the trading will open again, because this news can be treated and positively and also negatively by the investors. First of all, the company is launching the private placement of up to 10% of share capital, which for us means that it's gonna be dilution. So they're gonna release more shares. So that's definitely a bit negative sign. However, when the company takes the money, it's worth thinking, are they taking money for saving the company or for the progress of the company? And if we think long term, it's a definitely positive sign, because they are expanding their business. They are adding 3 more vessels to the fleet, and as I speak now, we might see already some movement, and the stock opened negatively in red, and it went down nearly 10% or so. Yeah, we can see that the market reacted in red today, and it's I think it's a kind of initial reaction to the share dilution, but let's see how it's gonna close at the end of the day, because after the earnings report the stock was traded also I think at minus up to 5%, and then by the end of the day it gained and went to the green area. And as I see that the company is trying to supply this demand that currently is very strong, and as we could see earlier, it's going to be strong in the upcoming years. And for me, definitely I'm gonna follow the company further, and I think I'm on the right way to choose this representative from the energy transition trend, and I'm sure the company will benefit from that. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope it was useful, and I'll see you in the next one.